Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse for 3 years running. And I'm joined by Sean Keenan.
I don't mind 5 different in-credit scenes.
And, of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear and a gregarious laugh, sensitive nipples, and famously huge turds. Who knew Drax and I had so much in common?
So much. You can't stop it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 today because guess what? It has made all of the money over the weekend. Yeah. It is rounding, my guess is by probably day end Monday, this bad boy will be at $500 million.
Oh, that's great.
I mean,
I think it's opened stronger than that Smurfs movie did a couple of weeks ago.
Slightly bigger than the Smurfs movie. I know that there are so many Smurfs fans out there just going, Smurf it, why can't we be number one? Too bad. But Guardians of the Galaxy is there, and it's interesting because Guardians of the Galaxy, the first Guardians of the Galaxy, was the first, little HMP knowledge for you kids, was the first movie that we ever reviewed to get a perfect score from each one of us. All three in the Dick Graysons, man. That was the first one.
Yep.
Will that happen again today? We shall see, everybody. But we got this bad boy jam-packed full of good stuff. Now, first of all, I do want to say that this is our Patreon month. For those of you that have gone out and supported us on Patreon, patreon.com/HMP, we thank you oh so very much. We gave away a sticker pack next week. It will be coming soon. And by the way, I do want to say to Eric, don't worry, buddy. I got the mug coming out to you. It went to a wrong address, so we're going to fix that for him. And I'm sure I'll see him at DragonCon this year. I'm going to give him a little something extra when we get there as well. So.
He means a kiss. He means a kiss, Eric.
Yikes.
Eric's a handsome man. He may get, well, if, you know.
Don't keep going with that thought, Adam.
He gave me some booze last year. If he boozes me up, he might get a kiss if he ain't careful. So, so what we're going to do every single week here on Patreon Appreciation Month, as I've just now coined it, we're giving away stuff, man. Last time was a sticker pack. Today we are doing probably the most insane thing that we've ever done on this show. We're putting what we review in your hands. Now, every single month, those that vote on that go out on Patreon and support us are able to vote on one of the movies that we'll actually watch this month. But that being said, we are actually going to give this exclusive power to one of you that we're about to draw right now. So I've got the HMP hat, as it were, right here. I'm going to dig in. We're going to pull out a name of this person. Barring a couple of things, we'll pretty much review whatever the heck it is you want us to review. So I have pulled a name from the hat, and I'll read it. Oh, long-time supporter here. Gorgon Campy, give us a call, my friend. Don't give us a call. We don't have a phone number for you to call. I don't know. Give us a call right now, 555-1212. No,
these kids are wonderful, and it's up to you to help them.
Help them all.
Call the number, do your part. Now, here's Ed McMahon.
When the whole world smiles. I don't know. Whatever we do.
All I know is the number begins with KL5.
KL5 432. But yes, shoot me an email, buddy, and we'll get that off to you. Then you've got 2 weeks now to come up with something hopefully good. We're crossing our fingers that you just go, oh, I want them to, watch something fun and exciting and not something horrible. But that's to your discretion, my friend. So we'll leave that to you. And, of course, we'll have other prizes and stuff coming in the other following weeks here. So if you'd like to, it's still not too late. If anyone joins in, we'll throw your name in the hat as well. Patreon.com/HMP. We really appreciate that, guys. Okay, bringing it on. Let's do some more good stuff here, man. I don't know what you guys know, but we have the best fans around. Not only people that support us on Patreon, but also people that go on down to the iTunes, give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Hey, Humdinger.
And this one comes to us from the old jolly old England. And it is 5 stars, a.k.a. Humdinger. It is from Woody666. Very devilish there. But the O's in Woody are zeros, just to, I don't know what that does for you. But it's entitled...
means it's an android.
Ooh, that's a good point. And it is entitled Heidi's Humdinger. I don't know. You and the... All right, we'll move on from there. And it goes as follows: the best hero podcast in the multiverse. The three hosts' chemistry really make this a podcast informative and hilarious. Even the crappy films are funny, especially when Sean has a rant. Keep up the good work, guys. That is from Woody666. Woody, thank you for that review. If you'd like us to, keep this podcast going, reach out to more and more people, head on down to the iTunes in the country of your choice. Drop us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger, and we'd really appreciate that, man. More stuff. We got more stuff, man. This is a jam-packed show. We cannot be stopped here because we have a little thing called the mailbag. Let's go ahead and open up the said mailbag. If it wants to... Hold on. It was stuck.
Fails here.
What was that, Bruce?
I said, do we have to do it live? And then the music started.
Yeah, we got to do it live. I had it, but it wasn't clicking properly. And we have another email that we'll actually save for later in the show because it's about Guardians specifically here, so I won't close off the mailbag just yet. But this one comes from Lee. Hey guys, I've been enjoying your podcast for the humor and your insight for making into making of the movies you review. You recently mentioned that you have not reviewed Superman 2 yet. Shame on you, by the way. But I'd really like to hear your take on Superman 2, the Donner Cut. I found it fascinating that they were able to cobble together Richard Donner's original vision for the movie. It's quite different from what was released. With your knowledge of various players and history, I would love to hear your thoughts and, of course, how it relates to Sylvester Stallone. Keep up the good work. And that's from Lee. Lee, thanks, man. It's definitely on the radar. And that's so of all the ones left, that's the only one we got for the Reeves.
I've got the Donner Cut on DVD, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah, me too. Same thing.
So,
yeah.
Except for my version is Blu-ray.
Oh.
Not that matters at all.
So, when it comes down to it, we'll know Sean has really actually seen more of the movie than Bruce. So keep that in mind.
Oh, mine's on Laserdisc now. I'm just changing the story.
I got to flip it.
Nice.
Got to flip it around there. We got another review talking about the Guardians, and we'll leave that towards the end when we talk about that movie and everything. But let's go ahead and do that, man, because my guess is we're going to have quite a bit here to talk about. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Good job, YouTube. You're really just knocking it out of the park.
The fate of the universe lies on your shoulders. Now, whatever you do, don't push this button. Because that will set off the bomb immediately, and we'll all be dead. Now, repeat back what I just said.
I am Groot.
No! No, that's the button that will kill everyone. Try again.
I am Groot.
Mm-hmm.
I am Groot.
Uh-huh.
I am Groot.
No! Showtime, a-holes.
Nobody has any tape.
Not a single person has tape.
You have an atomic bomb in your bag. If anybody's gonna have tape, it's you.
I have to do everything.
You are wasting a lot of time.
That's a really bad sign.
If I touch someone, I can feel their feelings. You feel love.
Yeah, I guess, I feel a general unselfish love for just about everybody.
No, sexual love.
No, I don't.
For her.
No. She just told everyone your deepest, darkest secret.
Dude, come on. I think you're overreacting a little bit.
You must be so embarrassed. Do me.
All right, that was a trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, our new release review of the week. Here's the IMDb plotline. As we all know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. Set to the backdrop of awesome mixtape number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 continues the team's adventures as they unravel the mystery of Peter Quill's true patronage. This is written and directed by James Gunn, starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Michael Rooker, Karen Gillan, and a couple other people I'm sure we'll be talking about. And man, oh man, like I said, made a boatload of money here at the box office, but we have to ask ourselves that all-important question. Bruce, how does this relate to our comic books, man?
Well, thank you for asking, because most Marvel stories that we know of occur in the 616. Now, this includes the Guardians of the Galaxy featuring Star-Lord, Rocket, Groot, Drax, and Gamora. But what a lot of casual fans may not know is that the original Guardians existed in what is known as the Marvel 691. Now, this universe is set in the 31st century, where Major Vance Astro, also known as Major Victory, assembles a team known as Guardians of the Galaxy, featuring Yondu Udonta, a blue-skinned noble savage from Centauri 4, Martinex, a crystal being from Pluto, Charlie 27, a soldier from Jupiter, and the mysterious husband and wife duo Starhawk and Alita. Of course, Starhawk is played by none other than Sly Stallone, and Alita is played by none other than Michelle Yeoh in this movie. Now, the primary mission of this team was to oppose the Badoon, a group of alien bad guys. But they also faced other groups of alien bad guys. One of them was known as the Stark. And the Stark are a matriarchal, purple-skinned alien species of warriors that are on Earth 691. Now, they are named for Anthony Stark, commonly known as Iron Man, whose technology is what their whole society is based on. Now, their society seems to be run by females, with female Starks holding higher ranks, while the males in general are sort of the grunts and the soldiers. Now, one member of the Stark came to great prominence facing the 31st century version of Guardians of the Galaxy. This mysterious individual came from this planet of primitive beings that, one day this cache of armor and technology created by Tony Stark landed on the planet. They quickly adapted themselves to this new technology. They started to call their whole race of people the Stark after their unknown idol, Tony Stark. And of course, they proceeded to misuse their newfound gift to conquer other planets. Now, this fellow I'm talking about was sent to keep an eye on the recently conquered planet of Korg. While he was there, he crossed paths with the Guardians of the Galaxy and fought them to a near standstill, though eventually he was defeated. Now, after his defeat, he was tortured by a species, and his hatred for the Guardians grew. He managed to plead mercy to the High Sister to get a chance at redemption. He's given some upgrades, and he sets off to fight the heroes again, and only succeeds in blowing himself up. Now, he had a vast array of weapons at his disposal. That included repulsor rays, sensors, and tasers. He had the ability to absorb energy and redirect it. But despite all this, he was still no match for Yondu, Major Victory, and Starhawk. Now, who was this mysterious alien? Well, he's gone by several names. He was called Nemesis 1 for a while. He was also known as Overkill. But you, dear listeners, probably know him as Taserface. Yes, Taserface of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 fame had an illustrious career as a cosmic villain in the pages of the original Guardians of the Galaxy. The team that this movie implies will be made up of Sylvester Stallone, Michelle Yeoh, Ving Rhames, and unless my ears deceive me, Miley Cyrus. That is our incarnation of the original Guardians of the Galaxy that we're given. So imagine that. We could have an MCU movie starring Sylvester Stallone and Miley Cyrus. Listen, Marvel, you had me at Taserface. You didn't have to go full mind-blowing awesome there. But since you're at it, go ahead and make Howard a member of the team. I know it absolutely messes up canon, but I'll allow it this one time. So Earth 691, Taserface, and Miley Cyrus are your comic book connection this week.
Let me tell you something. For those of you that are brand new to this show, that's what we do here. We do things that you're not going to find on any other podcast. Show me another podcast that does exactly what Bruce did there.
Well, dude, to be fair, that's what Bruce does. I usually have some crack I have to say about one of the actors, and you just keep talking. Bruce is the one who does all that.
Hey, listen. That's what I'm saying. He's the linchpin.
Oh, man, and not to spoil too much, but I am looking forward to Sean's bit at the end of this one, because I have a feeling he's going to give us an unexpected turn.
I don't know.
There is a turn this time.
It's kind of how he's good that way. He's good that way. Well,
so let me ask you before we start, right? Before we get into it, what did you guys overall? When you guys went into this, how high were your expectations?
Mine were actually a little reserved. I had kind of heard some early screeners, like the intellectuoso movie reviewers say that it fell a little bit flat. So I was a little nervous going into it.
But this is the first time you're hearing my review, Bruce. What do you know? Oh, I'm. No, for me it was it was reserved. I wanted to. Here's the thing. Like I said, we all really love the first movie a whole bunch. And, the same creative team is coming back for this again, and there's no reason why we shouldn't like it. So, but at the same time, there is that sequel thing, man. Can it, is the magic going to be there again? So I went in with the most base of expectations. Luckily, they were super smart with all of their advertising and stuff. I didn't see every single trailer, but the trailers that I did see were very, very minimal and only happened within mostly the first 30 minutes of the program and everything. So it didn't feel like I was walking in knowing a lot of what was kind of going down and stuff. And I really kept away from everything. And, boy, I think it made a lot more, everything a lot more enjoyable that way.
For me, what I came into, because this is the thing I was second most excited for 2017, Star Wars being number 1, this being number 2. Because I think this is all of us, right? We all really like James Gunn, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing that I love most about James Gunn is just the giant, massive ideas that he brings to each screenplay that he writes. There's such large ideas that he brings in, and not just set pieces, but ideas and emotions and all that stuff. He does it with every movie he has. And for me, this movie did not disappoint in any way when it came to that.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a lot of the theme of this review and everything is really because writer and director, which is very rare with these Marvel movies, rarely do you have that giant auteurship throughout the entire process and everything. I think a lot of it's really going to be talking about him and how he did this balancing act that I think would be very hard for many other people to do.
And some of the baggage I was taking with me into this sequel is the fact that within the past year and a half, I'd made the realization that Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 1, if you want to call it that for clarity's sake, but I had made the realization that was my favorite MCU movie. I liked it better than, and I know Sean's not going to like this when I say it, but I liked it better than The Winter Soldier. I liked it better than Civil War. I liked it better than either of the Avengers movies. With time, I made the decision that was, for me, the flagship of the MCU. So there's a whole lot of room to fall flat on my face here if this doesn't turn out so well, to make me regret choosing this as my preferred franchise from the MCU.
Well, Bruce, but I get that because, it's a matter of taste,
Yeah.
And this movie, more than any other Marvel movie, more than any movie that we've seen in a very long time, is just fun. It's so much fun watching these people.
Watching this movie, I felt like somehow the studio, without me remembering it, did a focus group of 1 where they just let me watch whatever they had, and they asked me if I had any ideas, and no matter how ridiculous, absurd, or over the top it was, they took all of them and put it in the movie. I feel like they made this movie specifically to get me to give it a good review at the cost of everybody else in the world.
It just feels like, to me, this movie, it's just so bold. Both of them, 1 and 2 here, because 2, I can see people walking out of 2. I totally can, and going, you know what, that was not what I wanted it to be. But that's the point. A sequel is not supposed to be the exact same thing we just saw. Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, that's otherwise you're going to have Austin Powers 3 and Hangover 2 and 3 and just sequelitis. And with these are two completely and totally different themes and size of the movie, because the first movie is a fairly, even though they're saving the universe or they're saving the galaxy, is a very it's pretty small when you think about it, you know. And this is a much bigger movie than the first one.
But at the same time, I would almost say there's almost an intimacy level with this one as well, even despite as big as it is. And that's what I think is very, very interesting, is still having that grandiosity to everything and the still intimacy within the characters and narrative at the exact same time. To me, that was a big balance.
I'm sorry, Bruce. Go ahead. You go ahead.
The first one, I didn't really pick up on a strong, theme in the artistic sense. But in this movie, clearly the theme is family ties and family relationships and what they mean. And it actually takes on a pretty noble task upon itself, while at the same time giving me the jokes I want about turds and Pac-Man and David Hasselhoff.
Now, I will say this from the outset, just so everyone out there knows, because I know with really big new releases and stuff, we always get new members to the audience. First and foremost, welcome. But from this point out, we will be spoiling everything in this movie. So at this point, if you've not seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, you might as well just come back when you're ready, man. Because with all of our
we probably
reviews
should hit that early.
No, we didn't really say too much, I don't think. But
we haven't said anything yet. No. It's all generality.
But what I do want
Oh, man, I've already spoiled the turd joke.
I think we know where your loyalties lie.
Darn you, Leslie. But no, so spoilers from here on out. That's kind of how this show goes. We're very spoiler rich on everything because we assume that you've probably seen it, and or when we review bad movies, you probably don't care.
Yeah.
So
no one's complaining about us spoiling Superman 4.
I thought, oh, dude.
How dare you, Nuclear Man? I didn't know anything about Nuclear Man.
I thought
Golem and Globus spoiled that one way before we got to it.
You were not wrong about that, bub.
Someone left this mayonnaise out in the sun.
Oh my God.
Well, man, should we start talking about how good Kurt Russell looks at the beginning of this movie, man? He looked a lot younger than I expected.
Slightly.
So is Marvel the only studio getting it right now where, like, look, you use it sparingly. You do not use it for, long swaths of time where it clearly looks like a robot. Like they're doing a very, very good job with this de-aging stuff.
Well, they learned the harsh lesson with Tron.
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, the one in Tron looked absolutely just terrible. But this is good. And here's the thing. It's still, like everything else, letting the kind of flaws of that person's actual face. And flaws are, it's not necessarily a negative term because we all got them, except for Keenan. But being able to just let a face be what that face is and stuff. And like you said, they did use it sparingly, and there's enough kind of like, hey, he's got his shades on for the first little bit, and then a bit of back of the head, if you will. But when you do see it, dead on, it's not so de-aged and so, ridiculously young that you just go, oh, it's terrible. It works. The same thing with Michael Douglas and Ant-Man.
That hair was pretty sweet. That was some bitchin' hair he had.
Indeed.
So was that car.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that fastback Mustang.
I am not a fan of the Fox. I'm not a fan of the Fox body, but I do like the color scheme to it, where it's just disgusting. When you look at it, you want to throw up. It's great.
I like it that you have to look real close and say, now is that a souped up Pinto or a souped down Mustang? That's what I like about it.
Nothing says class.
They're both Ford and named after horses.
But we start out in the 80s, man, and that's have we? I don't think we've necessarily. Well, was Ant-Man technically in the 80s? I guess.
Yeah,
we saw a young Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
So I guess it was probably. I was just trying to put all the timelines together because there's a lot of stuff going on. Now, speaking of timelines, because I want to get this straight, because I've seen some brouhaha on the internet, and it drives me up the wall. And we'll get into more specifics later. But this movie itself takes place, one would assume, several months or so after the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
I think James Gunn himself has said 3 months after.
So very close thereafter, because some people, there are events that happen in movies that people go, wait a minute, where are all the Avengers? First of all, do you think the Avengers are going out to the middle of the country when things go down at the drop of a hat? Come on, people, get real.
Plus, I mean, all that really happened was a Dairy Queen got smashed.
Yeah, that's
they're all fans of Ben and Jerry's anyway.
Yeah.
There ain't no Dairy Queen that they're worried about in New York and Avengers in their ivory Avengers Tower.
Plus, how upset would you be if Thor fixed everything and then the movie's over?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I don't know what was going on. So it starts out in 1980 and it says 34 years later, so that we know we're in 2014. And I don't know what's going on with the rest of the MCU in 2014. Somebody can put this timeline together, but maybe that's when Doctor Strange had his car crash and stuff.
It's Age of Ultron, isn't it?
Age of Ultron was 2015, I think.
Okay.
Well, you got to have time for post-production.
Yeah.
Look, there's a year lead-up time, at least a year.
Now, were either of you guys a little bit worried from the trailer and even worried from the intro that we were just going to have a little too much Baby Groot? I mean, they start off where there's this big tentacle beast fighting in the background, and we get treated to a prolonged sequence of Baby Groot dancing. And I thought the intro worked for me, but I know a lot of people were worried this was going to suddenly Baby Groot was going to Jar Jar this movie.
Somehow,
well, for me, go ahead, Adam, because I'm going to have a diatribe here. Go ahead.
Somehow I knew in the hands of James Gunn that couldn't happen. And I felt like this was his way of going, let's get it all out in Front Street. Here's Baby Groot. We're going to have a blast. It's going to be fun. All the kids are going to enjoy it. Everybody's going to laugh and smile and all this kind of good stuff. It'll be good watching it another 2-3 times so you can kind of focus on some of the stuff in the background because you were busy watching him and everything. But to me, this was, hey, let's get it out of our system so we're not focusing on Baby Groot the entire time, and that can just be something that happens later, and we're all cool with it. But I think I knew what he was doing from the get-go.
How about you, Sean?
For me, from a writer's standpoint, the reason why they front-loaded it with Groot is because they have to. Mm-hmm. Because he's the only character in this entire movie that doesn't have his own story arc. Every single other main character in this movie gets their own focus. It almost the way that the first Avengers does it, where each character gets their own story arc, gets their own time. The only character that doesn't get their own time in this movie is Groot, and so you need to front load it with Groot so people aren't like, why aren't we focusing more on Groot? And that's a perfect way to do it because you don't have to have any character development. You don't have to explain anything. He's just dancing to music as everyone's getting their head kicked in from the alien. It's great.
It's like he doesn't have the storyline, but he's got business, and that's what they wanted to just kind of focus on, that business part, and let's get all that kind of going and stuff so you can enjoy it.
Because literally every single other character in this movie has a story arc and their own drama, and there's a lot going on in this movie.
Now, do either of you know if Vin Diesel actually came back to do any more reading, or if they just took all the?
He's credited as such.
Him. No.
I know that it's him.
He came in to do it. They brought him in again. Yeah.
I was just wondering because he said the reports from the first movie are that they recorded like him saying I am Groot different ways, like 1,000 times, and I thought all they had to do was take what they already had, throw it into Adobe Audition and shift the pitch on it to sound like Baby Groot and just recycle a lot of it. I didn't know.
Did you see the video that they put out right around the first one where he's dubbing the Spanish version?
I haven't seen it.
He's standing in
Soy
there.
Gruto.
No, he does exactly. So he's standing there, and he's got these big black aviators on, and he's wearing like this tight white shirt, and he is getting into it like you've never seen before. And you thought he was like he looked like he was going Stevie Wonder or something. And he's just Yo soy Groot, and it was just like he was like everything in his body. It's just like you're enjoying this way too much, dude.
Do you think they did some mocap on him? Because he had some dance moves back in the day. Maybe that's really his dancing that we see Baby Groot doing there at the beginning.
I would be interested to find out whose that is, because now I know Sean Gunn did all the kind of rocket stuff on set and whatnot. So
yeah.
I don't know if we let Vin do all his own dancing.
There's no way.
Because that would have been kind of cool.
It would, but there's no way that happened.
I'm just glad I'm glad they don't do facial capture, because he always just like, if you've seen that new Fast and the Furious movie or any of those Fast and Furious movies, he's just got that I smell poop look on his face the entire time. So thank God.
I just wanted him on set doing mocap. I wanted him on set doing mocap when Bautista, when Drax said, we're not friends, we're family, and just see the steam come out of his ears because he didn't get to say that line from his other franchise.
Yeah, Vin's been all about family this summer.
He really gets along with those professional wrestlers turned actors, you know.
Of course.
Let me start over. So Vin Diesel, no matter what happens to his acting career, he's always going to have voiceover work because what an amazing voiceover actor he is. Isn't he great?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. I love The Iron Giant. To this day, one of my faves.
It is my oldest daughter's favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, good movie, man.
Never heard of it. I'm kidding.
I'm sorry I brought the show to a halt, everybody.
Yeah, he's a good voice actor. He's got that deep voice, man. And also, you know, voice acting's kind of, you know, it's one of those nice things if you got a talent for it and, you know, you can kind of do it solo, do it on your own, work on your own schedule. I think it's a cool thing that he could keep doing for a long time, even if he wanted to retire from more strenuous acting.
All right, so since we're talking about voice acting, let's get into this. I believe now after 2 movies, I've seen the man in tons and tons of things. This is my favorite Bradley Cooper role ever.
Oh yeah, no, hands down, of course.
And I like
Limitless.
Limitless is good. I like him as an actor. This is the best thing he ever does because like you don't listen to it and go, boy, that's Bradley Cooper right there. Not a bit. And it is. I love what he does as Rocket. You know, Limitless is a great movie. He does a good job, and he does a good job in everything he's in. But nothing hits home for me the way that Rocket's voice does. Yeah, when
he doesn't get to do that. He doesn't get to do that half Brooklyn, half raccoon accent in his other movies.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shaking plastic babies like he did in American Sniper. Boy, that's a blast. Try to make that baby seem alive. Oh, it's so good.
And then were you surprised at how early they gave up the goods? You know, we go to that snowy planet with the robot ladies that do the stuff, and Yondu's up there buckling up his belt buckle, and I hear a real familiar voice say something like, "Yo, Adrian," or whatever.
It's so good that you just like you can just hear him in the distance, and you're just like you sit straight up in your chair, going, "Here it goes, boys and girls."
And maybe it's just because I now have a weakness for Sylvester Stallone, but hearing his voice from far away and immediately knowing who it was like, oh man, here we go. You know, like it was such a welcome thing in a movie that was already great.
Now, I tried really hard to avoid spoilers, so I did not know he was Starhawk. Like when they call him Stakar or whatever, and I realized, oh man, this is Starhawk. This is like old school Gene Cologne, Guardians of the Galaxy character, Starhawk. I had no idea that that's who Sly was going to be playing. Did you guys already know he was going to be Starhawk?
No, and I will say this, Gene, one of the most underrated guys out there. Just putting that.
Even though I've never pronounced his last name correctly.
Nope.
I try to say it differently every time, hoping I get there eventually.
It's just Colin. But
I didn't know that his character was Starhawk until you just said, oh, by the way, Sylvester Stallone was playing Starhawk.
He's a big deal, man. Starhawk's a big deal.
I know Stakar Agord.
Yeah, and Alita, whatever. His wife was Michelle Yeoh's character there at the end, which I don't know if I said her last name correctly either.
That's
but
correct.
You know who I'm talking about.
You did.
Okay, I didn't know if it was Yeoh or just Yo.
It's Yo.
It's Yeoh.
Good.
Jeez Louise.
But man, I did not. I almost thought that like Sylvester Stallone was going to be in one of the end credit sequences, or he was just going to kind of show up real small in this. I didn't know, man. They're setting him up for Volume 3 being a big part.
The man has said he wants to do his own solo, solo, but probably with that group movie. He's said it. So.
Oh man, I would love to see Guardians 3000 or whatever for Volume 3, where it's the original Guardians with this group that we see him putting together in this movie.
Well, don't you think that they're going to call them the Ravagers, or
Oh, they might. I don't care what they call it. In my mind, it'll be Guardians 3000 just to kind of group them all together. The sad thing is, and I've seen a lot of people asking this question. I just don't see how they can work Major Victory into it, which is going to be the one glaring omission because you can't really.
Yes, what a massive omission.
Well, I mean, he is the star of the original Guardians, and the whole idea behind Major Victory is that he grew up idolizing Captain America, and then in the 31st century, he went and found the discarded shield, because Steve Rogers has been dead for years. He even names his spaceship the Captain America and eventually meets, like, Steve Rogers the 7th or whatever. But you can't have a futuristic cosplaying Captain America calling himself Major Victory in this movie. You know,
I don't think there's going to be any time jump at all because there's no need for one in these series.
And that's why I don't think they could have Vance Astro in unless they just had him as Vance Astro. But you never know. Maybe they will. I didn't think we were going to have I didn't think we were going to have some of the other things we've had in these Guardians movies so far. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I hope that he goes with the mullet and the sleeveless trench coat. That's a good look.
You and I vary differently on what we like and don't like.
Fashion senses are different for everyone.
Oh man!
Now we do get our second foray into the world of a little Howard the Duck action.
Yeah, sitting there, and it's Seth Green again, man, talking about if you haven't gone duck, you've never gone anywhere, or something like that. I can't remember what he said.
It rhymes. It's if you haven't gone duck, you haven't pressed your luck, or something like that.
Once you go quack, you never go back.
That's what I was thinking.
That would have been way better.
But hey, again, it's more sprinkling that kind of stuff in there, man. That's just it's great.
Yeah, man, a lot of good stuff in there. And then I love how we meet Ego for the first time. You know, we've got these gold people, the Sovereign, who are an invention just for this movie, the best I can tell. But this race of golden people, and Aisha is a character from the comics, and I'll talk about that more towards the end.
Well, aren't they the Kree? Aren't they supposed to be the Kree?
No, man, the Kree are already in the MCU as the Kree. These are the Sovereign. They're a little bit different. We'll get into it once we're talking more about the nuts and bolts of the end scenes. I'll explain Aisha a little bit, but I like it that there's like 50 like 50 starships after him. These remote controlled, droid controlled, whatever video game style.
Such a great idea.
I love it, man. And then there's Kurt Russell holding on to a rope, riding on the back of a spaceship, and he just blasts them all up with the wave of his hand. And then the discussion about the 1-inch man.
It's a little man. I don't know if he got closer, but he might be bigger. I don't know.
And then I love, me personally, I really love Star-Lord saying, that's how eyesight works. But how crazy. I mean, only in this movie. That's like straight up Ice Pirates level stuff there where the guy's just, or maybe Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy level. But you got Kurt Russell holding on to a rope, riding his spaceship like it's a bucking Bronco and destroying 50 spaceships.
And just waving at the Guardians.
Hi.
Hi.
A little man. And you know what? I think that Zoe Saldana, Gamora, really kind of got more comfortable with her role in this movie, too, because I like her line delivery better here, where it's a lot more casual than it was in the first one. But, she says things like, so you're telling me that a 1-inch man destroyed 50 ships.
But yeah, I think she was. You're right. I think comfortable is probably the best way, and I don't know if that was just written wise or whatever. But she seems a lot freer in this movie than the other ones. But then again, I think that maybe my only little small quip with the first one is perhaps she was slightly underwritten. But with her and Nebula, I think we obviously give her a lot more to do, which is great.
And Nebula gets far more to do this time around.
Yeah, and that's honestly where this whole thing really kind of shines. What James Gunn is doing here, the relationships between family members in this thing, and her story about fighting her sister when they were younger and everything, and every time she would lose to Gamora, like Thanos would replace her with some other piece to try to make her, a better, version of herself in order to best her sister, but that never happened. And man, giving that character a lot of depth that just wasn't there in the first one, and you feel for the character, and you get to really know that relationship a lot better.
And that's not from the comics either.
Yeah, because Nebula's relationship to Gamora is more nebulous, if you'll allow me a really bad pun, in the comics. But there's an idea. She's like the space pirate, and she claims to be related to Thanos somehow, but nobody knows if she's telling the truth or not. So they really made the dots a lot closer here.
Better. They made them better.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
This is far better.
And
I think that of all of the Marvel properties that have gone to the MCU, and you have your favorites. This is the one where if you're reading the books, and the books are great, like when they're firing on all cylinders, the especially the ones from like 5, 6, 7 years ago, those Guardians of the Galaxy, those are really, really good. They're not this good. This is, to me anyway,
Yeah.
in my opinion, these movies are far better than Guardians of the Galaxy at its height to me.
And this is also a nice one too. I mean, you're going to get the occasional deep diver into Guardians lore that's going to be upset about the changes, but there aren't any kids that grew up with Nebula lunchboxes like we have with Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, so they can play a whole lot looser with the canon here. Nobody is going to get upset because they totally changed the backstory on Mantis,
And to me, that's one of the most fabulous things about this is even going back to the first Guardians. This is and it shows you how well-oiled of a machine Marvel is dealing with here, is that they took an entire group of things that no one knew from, anything, and they made it like, I think it was the third highest grossing movie of that year up until like Hunger Games and I think American Sniper, speaking of Bradley Cooper. But man, oh man, that thing was just it was so deep. And now people love this thing like it's Captain America, like it's Hulk. And come on, that's an amazing, amazing feat.
Oh, yeah, man.
I actually had a thought while watching this movie today that, eventually the superhero genre is going to die out. I mean, it just has to. Your action movies, your westerns, they all go away after a while, and so will the superhero genre will also die out a little bit. But even if that happens, I think this is one of those franchises that could continue on even after that's over, because there's no superheroes. It's all space stuff.
Yeah, man, its competition is going to be Star Wars and Star Trek, and it's not going to be the Dark Knight 7 or whatever.
Right. And, one of the weird things that they could do is because it looks like that's exactly what they're doing in this movie, they could branch off into its own sub-series,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely, man. And the one big advantage here is that they really, really lay on the liberal humor, which to me means their competition is going to be Star Trek, which is pretty easy competition for this franchise, rather than trying to be a little more serious and taking on Disney's other property, the War in the Stars movies.
Yeah. Well, the thing with that is like they already know. They're like, hey, look, we got great counter programming to our own programming.
But I did like Mantis here, man. This actress, I don't know much about her. I know she's like a francophonic Canadian from what I could find on Wikipedia or whatever. But
you are right, she is.
But I really like Mantis, a character that I never cared that much about in the comic. I mean, she's got an interesting behind-the-scenes story with Jim Starlin, and she more or less has been in both Marvel, DC, and Image or whatever. But I like what they've done with her here. I like the way this actress portrays her. She makes for a real nice screen couple there with Drax and a lot of their hyper-literal back and forth. It's really fun to have those two characters being their weird self with each other. And
something that I'm glad about is that she didn't feel like she was just kind of thrown in there. She didn't feel like a Cousin Oliver, if you will, like, oh, we just needed to add one more character in here. And again, I'll go back to this a whole bunch. There's no fat with this thing. Everything that is in this movie for a sole purpose, and anything that did not have to do with that purpose was taken out. And James Gunn is such a master at doing this. Every bit of her dialogue, everything that she's there for, it's just like what they tell you to do in screenwriting, but nobody does, which is that everything comes out of their mouth is leading towards something else.
And, since they are really emphasizing the Star-Lord and crew version of the Guardians, Mantis turned out to be such a key part of that team. There was a revelation, I think it was after the Cancerverse, but it might have been during, that it turns out Star-Lord had used the empathic powers of Mantis to convince the team to get back together when they really didn't want to. So it's kind of cool to introduce her here and maybe have some kind of twist like that on down the road.
Yeah, that is cool. To go back for a second and talk about Adam's thought there, Mantis isn't Cousin Oliver, but more so, Mantis is not Poochie.
True.
There ain't no Poochie here. And one of the things that I really like about this movie is that the people that they're bringing in, they originally bring in people basically to set up a comic bit. Whether it's Taserface, whether it's Mantis, you originally meet these people through a comedy bit, and then you learn more about them after that. So you have Taserface, you have Mantis, where there's that great setup that people are going to remember forever. about her knowing Star-Lord's deepest, darkest secret. Like that's real. That's really, really smart. I mean, it's just smart.
Now, are either of you guys surprised to hear me say that I really, really liked it, that they seriously upped Drax in this movie? I mean, I liked him good enough in the first one, but man, shocker, I know, but he's far and away my takeaway favorite character from Volume 2.
Yeah, that is a wild shock coming from you. But no, honestly, a lot like Zoe Saldana's Gamora, it felt like he was a lot more comfortable in the role and was able to and I don't know if it's just the fact that it's written that way or if it's the actor himself. Either way, I don't care, but it's great. And it feels like he's far more comfortable, the character's far more comfortable, and is able to really interact with people on the best level that they possibly can.
Well, I also kind of feel like when the first movie's being written and they're making this choice with Drax, like there's a little bit of a nervousness in the back of, I guess Gunn primarily wrote the script for both of these, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So I feel like he's like, oh, man, I don't know how people are going to go for this. I'm just going to use a little bit of a light touch. Then after the first movie was so well received, he was comfortable writing the character the way he wanted to write it, too. You know, that's the feeling I get because, man, I'm Team Drax after this movie. And that wasn't necessarily something I said after the first one.
Yeah.
I liked him in the first one, though.
I liked him in the first one, too, but I wouldn't have said he was my favorite thing about it. But I think this time I'm saying he's my favorite thing about it.
Well, I think that the poop line had a lot to do with you loving him so much.
You know what? I have to concede that point to you in this great debate.
But I think that, well, first of all, let me ask this. Does Bautista have the same love for this character as like Chris Evans has for Captain America or Robert Downey Jr. has for Iron Man? Do we know that?
I think he does.
I don't.
From what I've read and everything, I think he really digs this role. I think he's mentioned recently he wants to do something with Spider-Man, for heaven's sake. So I think he's down.
Well,
the
Bautista,
Spider-Man and Drax movie.
That's a bad idea.
Well, hey, a lot of bad ideas come from a lot of actors. We ain't got to do them, but we just got to go. Oh, ain't that cute? You get back to reading them lines, big boy.
Remember when Ferrigno kept asking for a love interest for the Hulk on the old TV show?
I just think that the Hulk would like to have I want to kiss a girl.
Man. But, I was also a little nervous with the first one. Was it just kind of a fluke? Is Bautista going to be able to handle this long term? Wrestlers that try to make that transition to acting, the list of successful wrestlers is exactly one until Drax comes around, in my opinion. I'm no huge John Cena fan in terms of his acting. I'm also very glad that he wasn't chosen for this role instead of Bautista, but I think this guy has what it takes for Drax to do it. As long as they'll let him do it, man, I'm all for it.
Now, I'll say this. I'm not a giant wrestling fan, but I'll give John Cena a little bit more credit. I think that guy really knows who he is and knows what works for him. Because like his role in like Sisters and even Trainwreck, which by the way was a horrible movie, he's great in those. I don't think he would have been great in this role, but I wouldn't mind seeing him in some sort of superhero thing. I think if he got a little bit more, under his belt, he might be okay.
You guys are also forgetting another wrestler in a massive, massive role.
I know where we're going with this.
Bonesaw's ready.
Oh man, I thought you were going to talk about Fezzik, who is, inspired some of my own creative endeavors.
That's right.
Well, we got Rowdy Roddy Piper too, but that
Oh, Rowdy Roddy, my favorite wrestler of all time.
Put the glasses on.
He's no junkyard dog, but he's pretty good.
Grab them cakes.
That's what we always try to do. But. Yeah, I think Dave Bautista is doing a great job here. Again, I think he likes what he's doing. I think he wants to continue doing this, and so it's all good.
Well, how much fun was it when we got to see Rocket flex his muscles a little bit when he gets to fight a whole bunch of Ravengers?
Man, that's so cool. I love watching it. Here is the thing that I keep thinking about with these movies, especially something this big. And this is actually a pretty good one-for-one comparison. So Pirates of the Caribbean, the first movie comes out. Mm-hmm. It is surprising how good that movie is because it's clever and Johnny Depp is perfectly cast and we want to see more of Johnny Depp as that pirate, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy. You watch Guardians of the Galaxy, it's surprising that Talking Tree and the raccoon are awesome. And it turns out that the fat kid from Parks and Rec is also really great. So now we go to the second one. Pirates of the Caribbean, the second movie, is not nearly as clever as the first, and then there's diminishing returns after that one. However, the second Guardians movie is just as clever as the first one.
Yeah.
And so that's the big difference. As long as they stay clever with these movies are going to roll on forever, whereas Pirates of the Caribbean keeps going, even though that horse been dead for about 7 years now.
Yeah.
I don't want to admit to this because honestly, I've never seen past the first half hour or so of that Pirates movie. I know most people loved it. I got bored as crap. That latest Pirates trailer wasn't half bad though. There was a little bit of comedy in that was kind of, I don't know. It was fun for a sketch. I don't know that I want to go watch a 2.5 hour movie on account of it, but save it for the trailers.
Moving forward just a little bit, how many times do you think I was pumping my fist in the air when I realized that Yondu was going to get the comic book accurate fin, the mohawk from the comics?
I got to tell you, I did think about that when they pull open that drawer and the fin is in there. I was like, Bruce is going to like that. I did. I really did.
Oh, standing ovation time in the movie theater. I'm telling people, you better get up and start pumping your fist with me here because this is awesome. So what you're seeing here, you don't appreciate it, but this is a thing of beauty, man. That was one of my complaints, one of my few complaints from Volume 1, which is not the name, but it's easy to refer to it that way.
Sure.
Was the fact that his mohawk was so far off from the comics. And man, James Gunn had the confidence to say, you know what? Bruce wants the real mohawk, because he did that focus group of one. We're going to give him the real mohawk. Even if they do call it a fin, I'm all for it.
But James Gunn had the confidence to make Ego the living planet.
And a very comic book accurate one too. Once we get to see his face floating through space,
man, I mean that guy has Vidalia onions. He's got onion hangers because, good Lord, the chances and risks. This guy just made $120 million budgeted movie, and there's a planet with a face on it, and it was serious.
Yeah.
And we get the flying Pac-Man fight too, which is another fist pumper.
Oh, so good.
Even the line about building statues. We're going to have Skeletor, Pac-Man, Heather Locklear. I'm going to build some weird stuff. I'll paraphrase. I'm going to build some weird stuff. I love it, man.
And now,
so many, that was one of the things that I really, because I'm a big ideas guy. Like, I love seeing big ideas in movies. I love people taking risks. And this movie, I don't know if you can technically call them risks because it is Disney and it is Marvel and it seems like everything goes through a committee, but just such big ideas in this movie over and over and over again to the point where you're like, are they running out of ideas to do with these guys? Like, what is 3 going to look like? Because there's no way they don't make more of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gunn has said he's like, he took a little while because he's like, look, I really need to think about if I need to take the next 3 years of my life to do this. He's like, I'd like to, but you got to understand, these are the last 2 things that I've done. They've taken up a large portion of my time. But he has said, I want to close this out with number 3. And he said, good. Guardians 3 will actually, get this, Sean, set up the next 10 years of the Marvel Universe, according to him.
Oh, man. And then, not only does he get the new fin, but I appreciate when they show just how formidable Yondu can be, that he's not just a leader of a ragtag group of space pirates, but, in his prime, he was a feared person for a reason because they show him just slaughtering that entire ship. To me, that's the moment where we get to see Yondu be awesome, just like a few scenes before we got to see Rocket be awesome out in the woods.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you, Bruce, because I only have a passing knowledge of Yondu from the comics. Is the fin mechanical in nature in the comics as well?
It's biological in the comics. His arrows are just magic in the comics, and he has more than one of them, but he can control them.
And that
with his whistles.
So, and did the fin control the arrows in the comic?
I don't think so. I think that was something added here, but I think it was a nice addition. It worked for me.
Yes, it's a good touch for sure.
But it allowed him to go to that thing that I think that he probably wanted to do, but was just like, hey, let's dial it back a little bit here. First one out the door and everything. But they made it organic enough, so to speak, for an addition to one's head. But they made it work.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna seem impossible right now because the man just doesn't have any time. But that proposed bounty hunter Star Wars movie, I think James Gunn is perfect for that.
Yeah.
Now, it also the addition of the Finn gave us a nice little extended comedy sequence with Groot bringing just ridiculous things, starting with dirty underwear, ending even with the little round thing that was right next to the Finn before Sean Gunn finally gets to bring it in. And by the way, how about we show a little bit of love? I don't know how this actor from a small role on Gilmore Girls caught the director's attention and got such a big part in this movie.
He is pretty great in this movie also.
Oh, he was great on Gilmore Girls.
I can't think of any weak spot in this movie. Maybe Kurt Russell, actually, his weakest performance in this movie.
Yeah, I could see that. He seemed to be casual in not the good way at times. A little phoning it in kind of feeling came from him as ego.
Definitely has some Roger Moore acting ability happening in this.
Yeah.
Listen, let's not say things we can't take back.
Look, I love Kurt Russell, man, but Kurt Russell is now playing Kurt Russell now that Gene Hackman has retired. He's taking all of those roles.
You're not
Just
wrong
be careful.
there.
You don't want to get on Goldie Hawn's bad side, so be careful.
But no, you're absolutely correct. Kurt Russell's the best Kurt Russell that ever Kurt Russell, for sure.
Right.
Oh man, he's good. He's good at Kurt Russell.
Yeah. Now I'll say this, and we kind of touched upon it a little bit, but what I love about this movie and about what's kind of going on with Guardians here is this thing is we've got our regular MCU stuff, the stuff that's pretty much based on Earth for the most part, right? This to me, all the kind of the galactical stuff here, to me this is the punk rock Marvel universe, and I love that that's what Gunn is doing here. Because it's a little bit, while it's more colorful, it's also at the same time a little bit more gritty. There's a little bit more kind of dirtiness to it. You have, they push the language barrier more than they do in any of the other films. But yet they also at the same time don't push it so far to alienate people. I mean, for example, the fact that he gets to the point where the frickin' Guardians of the Galaxy, only he didn't say frickin', and by the PG-13 laws, he could have gotten away with saying it, and I thought that they might. But at the same time, I thought it was really strong of them not to. Yeah,
it felt fun the way that I had more fun with him translating it and going, only he didn't say fricking.
Yeah.
To me, that was so much more fun than if he had just used the word.
It was.
If there's one thing that I've learned from doing this show now, which has been 3 years, happy 3-year anniversary, guys, again, is that one of the fun things to do, just as a performer, is getting around those words. Mm-hmm. I have way more fun doing that now than I ever thought I would.
You're welcome.
I was with you when you proposed that. I was right there with you.
We all three agreed. The guy who probably curses more than anyone else, decided we were all on the same page.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and if you listen to those first couple episodes, you can hear me struggling to figure out, and that's where half of our silly memes on this show have come from. It's trying to figure out words to substitute for dirty words.
Sometimes it's nice when you come up with the euphemism that sounds far worse than the actual word you're trying not to use.
Totally agree.
Saying chowder buckets is way worse. Way worse.
Yeah. Our ladies who do the stuff.
That's my proudest moment right there. But that's what I
his ladle into her loving gravy. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
But that's
there used to be a lot more of that from you, Leslie.
I know. I've loosened up a little.
Step up your game. But that's what I love about this thing, man. It is that kind of it's the stepchild that wants to do good, and steps up and says, "I'm going to do this, and we're going to do it kind of by our own rules and everything, but we're still going to kind of stick inside the lines, but we're going to do it in our own way." And I love that.
Any high points we need to hit over the big fight with Ego at the end? Of course, Star-Lord finds out that he's a demigod of sorts, a half celestial, and then we get to see a little bit of Star-Lord channeling that celestial power, fighting fire with fire against Ego.
Again,
I think that I think that the big turn in this movie happens just before that fight starts, where Yondu turns to him and says, "The arrow, I command my arrow from my heart, not from thinking." And that is the big turn in this movie to me, because basically what it's doing is it's showing you that Yondu is closer to Peter than Ego ever will be.
Yeah.
One. And two, that's how the flip can happen, is you do this kind of thing from your heart, not from your head.
And there was a part of me, though, that was wondering if he was going to say, I don't control it with my mind, I control it with my crotch, kind of like referencing back to the whole discussion. If my thing down there had a hand, it could have flown that ship for sure. And it would have fit in with this movie, but of course heart fits too.
Yeah, but for that moment there, here, as Bruce, as someone who is trying to straddle this line right now, this very line, like you have to pick those moments, and you need that moment to work for later, so that that you have the big reveal at the end, and you have the big ending, and it's touching and it's lovely and it's father and son, and you're not going to have nearly the same impact if he does say that right then and there.
The junk line?
And also they pay me back, they take that one away from me, but at least they give me the Mary Poppins y'all joke, which they
awesome.
paid me back for.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
So, but I guess the best part of the big fight scene is, of course, there's all the silliness with Groot and Rocket going on. There's the search for tape. Like, I love how they can be casual in the middle of absolute existential crises here. Looking for tape while meanwhile they're just fighting an unwinnable fight. I like some of that. I like some of that back and forth.
Again,
and of course, I like Pac-Man.
It's the other brilliant thing to do, which is called, all of this mess is going on out here. We hear it, but we don't see any of it. I love it.
Yeah. That was really, really fun.
Just having the guts to go, nope, we're staying inside here. We're just going to play an audio play outside.
Baby Groot fiddling with the wire. Like, he's literally just sitting there, like, just fiddling with the wire, waiting.
And, one of my favorite jokes comes off screen here when he goes, Drax, do you have any tape? Then you hear him go, yeah, Scotch tape will work. Scotch tape's great. Well, then why did you ask if Scotch tape would work if you don't have any? That's the sort of thing I would probably do in that situation. So I love that Scotch tape joke.
That is great.
So good. Why did you ask if you don't have any? A good moment.
There's so many good moments in this movie. Like when Mantis touches Drax while he's laughing hysterically, and she starts laughing hysterically and pointing at Peter. Like there's 100 different moments like that. Like the fact that they keep calling Rocket every other animal besides raccoon in this movie. That triangle-faced dog,
trash panda.
That monkey.
Man. And I had a lot of fun with Drax telling Mantis how hideous she is, and even at the end, it's beautiful. You're beautiful too, on the inside.
So good. I like a girl with a little more meat on her bones.
Oh man,
I'm telling you, James Gunn, bravo to you, sir. To hire all of these gorgeous looking ladies and cover them up with makeup. I mean, unbelievable. But there's not a bad looking chick in this group, man. Holy smokes.
And it is surprising because one of the things, one of those old stories like who's the only man to keep Michael Jordan under 20 points, Dean Smith? Who is the only guy who has ever made Karen Gillan not hot? Well,
James Gunn.
James Gunn.
Yeah.
And even so, there's still a little, you're like, it's not regular Karen Gillan, but,
But, I think it's a pretty brave and bold performance from her, too, because she really does perform in a way that makes her as unflattering as possible. I mean, she buys into the character, and I appreciate that from her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agreed.
Though I do miss her beautiful Scottish accent.
I miss that red hair.
Did she actually shave for this, or is this some makeup magic?
I know in the first one she didn't. Adam, do you know about this one?
I'm not sure about this one. Couldn't say.
Either way, she did a good job.
I'm gonna say no. Because I don't know.
She is who should be playing Jean Grey.
Yeah,
I'd go for that, man. Yeah, I'd vote for that.
Yeah, no, you got to vote for me there.
So can we get to the end credits? Like,
I want to say one more thing before we get to the end credits, and it's where James Gunn kind of has the step up to the altar moment, because we do finally get the scene, the line where Yondu's flying up into space. He knows he's going to die, and he says, Ego may have been your father, but he was never your daddy. And only Michael Rooker can deliver. Because let's be honest, Michael Rooker isn't an actor. He gets filmed being Michael Rooker with various types of makeup on, and he delivers it perfect for this character.
That's true. Same guy that was in Cliffhanger is also in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 for sure.
I mean,
the same guy that was a neo-Nazi that sold blue meth in Walking Dead is Yondu, who is blue from all the blue meth, I have to imagine.
I said this on Twitter, and I absolutely 110% mean this. This is Michael Rooker's best performance in anything ever.
Agreed.
He really is. I mean, there are just moments where he's like even just sitting in the cell with Rocket, just talking back and forth. And like you said, Michael Rooker plays, a hyped up version of Michael Rooker. And he plays everything very down and very controlled. He knows what he's doing right there. And he everything in here, man, he just pulls at those heartstrings exactly where they're supposed to be and makes you, when he goes, man, you feel it, dude. You feel everything in there, and it's Gunn setting up writing. But man, if Rooker could not go and make that performance work, that as good as the writing is, it would fall absolutely flat. And Rooker destroys this movie.
It's a career-defining role, but I'm going to give. I mean, you give credit where credit's due. It's written perfectly, with the knowledge that Michael Rooker is the actor that's going to be saying the lines too.
This is very much true. I mean, but I'll say it'll never happen in a million years. But Michael Rooker deserves an Oscar nomination for this movie. I mean, it'll never happen because he's a blue, man in a colorful comic book space movie. But for the acting that he did in this, deserves a nomination. Probably not a win, but at least a nomination.
I can't go with you there, Portrais. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm on Sean's side here, but I'll tell you what. Oscars don't mean that much to me. Enjoying a movie does, and I enjoy what Michael Rooker gives me here.
Fine. Do you think he gets a Hugo Award?
Sure, man. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, good.
Maybe even a Nebula and a Neptune and all those other weird ones.
Fine, I'll take that. All right, so you want to hit the post credits.
Here, I'll run them down for us one at a time and get some comments. There's one that I'm going to give a little elucidation to. I think you guys know which one that is. But the first thing we see is Sean Gunn's Kraglin. He suddenly has Yondu's mohawk on his head, and he's practicing with the arrow that happens to stab Drax in what I assume is one of his sensitive nipples.
So good. I really hope that we do see more Kraglin, especially, if we're going to have that offshoot of Ravager's movie, which they totally should make. He needs to be in it.
He could be, take over as the captain of the section that Yondu would be representing on the team,
Yeah, for sure.
Especially since every other member of the team is dead besides Kraglin at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next scene we have is Starhawk, a.k.a. Sylvester Stallone, saying, I'm so inspired by what happened to Yondu. I'm sad he had to die for this to happen, but we need to get the gang back together. And he wants to reunite the ex-teammates, where we get Ving Rhames as Charlie 27. We get a little robot head that I'm pretty sure is Mainframe, and Miley Cyrus's voice comes out of it. And then we get some of those other old-school 3000 GOTG guys. We also have Martin X is the guy that looks like he's all made out of crystal. I'm trying to remember who else is there, but they're all familiar to the fans of the old school GOTG.
But how many of those people exist? I've been reading comic books for 30 years now. I don't know anyone who was a huge old school Guardians of the Galaxy fan.
Well,
do you?
I know one guy that absolutely loves the team, but he's very, very upset that there was no major victory in this. So maybe that's who I'm talking about, is him specifically.
Does that young man look you in the face every night?
We get Starhawk. We get Starhawk's wife. We get, no Yondu, of course, but Ving Rhames' character, people may not know who he is. It's Charlie 27. He's from Jupiter. That's why he's so big. He's a gas giant, all the jokes intended. Martin X is from Pluto. That's why he's made out of compressed crystal. Looks like he's made of ice. Mainframe is a computer AI kind of thing. So we just get his head with Miley Cyrus's voice, which I thought was a nice touch. We get the Sorcerer Supreme from the 31st century, is the fish-looking guy that waves his hand and like rock and roll hand signals come up. And I can't remember who else they have here.
It's good stuff, and it leaves you, man. It leaves you going, ooh, this, let's make this happen. And Stallone said he wants to do it, so what Stallone wants, Stallone should be getting.
Now, let's see. The next one we get is Groot as a teenager.
Which was great. I felt that was like, to me, if that had not been there, I think I would have been upset.
Because we needed to see some progression. That was really great.
Yeah, and hopefully, we get a young adult Groot by the time Volume 3 comes around. But it was just kind of a fun joke. Now, the big one.
I love how his voice changed, too. I thought that was great. Kind of was like the low and then went to the...
I'm Groot. But, of course, the big one. If they were only going to have one end credit scene, it would be back with the Sovereign, with Aisha. Mm-hmm. And Aisha is creating a new artificial being whom she plans to use to destroy the Guardians, and she shall name him Adam. And that, of course, is Adam Warlock that's being created. Initially, Adam Warlock was just known as him. He was created specifically to destroy some of our heroes and later, turned over to the side of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Also, Aisha here, this Princess Aisha, in the comics originally, she was simply known as Her, and she was the female equivalent. She was the Eve to Adam Warlock. So she was created specifically to be a companion, to Adam Warlock. So that's why it's interesting. They're turning things around, having Aisha create Adam Warlock. James Gunn talked about wanting Adam Warlock in this movie and decided that that it already had enough people in it. But it's awesome to think that Adam Warlock could potentially show up even in one of the Avengers movies, the Infinity War Part 1 and 2 stuff.
Well, isn't Adam Warlock the person who shows up in Infinity Gauntlet to stop Thanos? Am I right?
Yeah, he's part of the, I think they're called the Infinity Watch that he ends up being a part of, where each one of them has to guard a stone to try to prevent the gauntlet from being put back together. But Adam Warlock, one of those Jim Starlin crazy cosmic characters, just like Thanos himself. So it's cool to see him, showing up. And then Aisha, who is his aide de camp at some points in the comics. So to have the two of them, potentially being bad guys together, that's cool.
Now, that being said, Warlock has said they've said he's absolutely not in the Infinity War movies, so take that for what you will.
In either one. He's not in either Infinity movie.
Well, the second movie's technically not called Infinity anymore, so we don't know.
But anyway, it's cool to know that he's on the horizon somewhere. I guess Volume 3 then. But, of course, if he were in it, that's exactly what they would say. I'm like one of those conspiracy theorists. That's what the government wants you to think.
Yeah.
And then, of course, our final actual end credits scene is basically a confirmation of a longstanding fan theory that Stan Lee is indeed a watcher in the Marvel movies, because he's standing there with Uatu and his buddies talking about the things he's seen.
So we know that one of them is Uatu?
Well, I mean, there's 3 watchers there, and I only know the name of one. So what are the chances that at least one of them isn't Uatu?
There's Gary, there's Lloyd, and Uatu.
Uatu, Willie, and Fred.
Of course, the Watchers. This Thursday on Fox.
Man, did you ever think you would not only see Watchers in a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, but they would just straight up look like Silver Age Watchers? I mean, these guys look like the guy that was cosplaying at Heroes Con that took his picture with Colin Bunn last year.
He did. And honestly, I would that freaked me out. I had no idea, and I was so stoked to have some Watcher action. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, I guess, come to find out, like, Marvel and Fox co-own a couple of things. So I guess they co-own Watchers. They co-own Kree. They probably co-own Skrulls as well, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But some of those early FFs, I think, can flow back and forth. But I was excited.
Absolutely, man. But that was kind of cool to see that, which means I think in Volume 3, we're not only going to get a Beyonder, but he's going to be in a leisure suit.
That would be awesome. I'm also surprised by how very little Goldblum is in this movie. I'm sorry, he's not in this one. It was the trailer beforehand.
No, Goldblum does show up, I think maybe dancing in the end credits.
Credits.
Yeah, he's credited as having a cameo in this. And
I'm sorry.
So is Cosmo the dog, but it's just a still photograph.
Right.
It was in my contract that I dance around a little bit.
Michael Rooker dancing is a sight to behold, too, at the end of this movie.
Man, you're not kidding.
So let's get to this email here. This is one from Matt. Howdy, fellas. I hope you enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 2 as much as I did. Being a child of divorce and remarriage, I was definitely touched by a lot of what happened in the movie. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on my Monday morning commute. As much as I enjoy this movie, I must say the marketing for this movie, like most superhero movies, really tried to convince me it would be the best thing I've ever seen. I love this movie, but I'm curious if you guys feel the same about these movies being shoved down our throats. Don't get me wrong, it was awesome, but how do you guys feel about the media and other sources, mainly sodas, candies, and credit card companies, over-advertising these films? I'm sure your listeners are curious to a degree about your thoughts on this sort of thing. You guys rock. You officially become my #1 podcast because How Did This Get Made is kind of slacking off, LOL.
Oh, dang. Shots fired.
Isn't that interesting?
Take that, Paul Scheer. Next thing you know, I'll be the one writing an episode of Ant-Man for Marvel.
But get this, though. That's not the first time that show has actually been said in conjunction with ours, so it's funny that way. Keep up the good work. Hope to hear your thoughts, Matt from Florida, a.k.a. the guy who used to be a jerk but now can't praise you enough.
Buddy.
That's my man.
But yeah, honestly, to me, that was one of the biggest things about this movie that I think took it to yet another level. I don't know James and Sean's relationship to their parents at all, but I wouldn't be shocked if there was something like this in there, or they, had someone close to them that had this kind of thing. And it's a big deal. This whole kind of thing that I think gets overlooked a lot is that man may be your father, but he's not your daddy. To me, that was one of the most powerful things in this movie. And I come from a great loving family. My parents have been, married for almost 40 years now. So I got no comings from this, but I've known people and been in relationships where things like this kind of happen. So it meant a lot, and I'm sure it meant a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
Do you have anything to add to that, Bruce?
I don't know that I have anything real meaningful to add to this, but I can kind of see where some folks would be touched by it. My parents split up when I was really young, but my dad was always in the picture enough. You know what I mean? I would definitely never say that somebody else was my dad,
That's good.
So from that side of things, I can't relate to it as much. Even added to it, I would very happily set one of my stepfathers on fire if he weren't already dead. So I kind of have the inverse relationship where the stepfather's a piece of junk and my dad's awesome.
Sean, that Magneto keeps coming out more and more every week, don't it?
I know it. I know. We got to keep an eye on that guy. So
I'm going to become a necromancer.
Let me tell you a little story here, right? So I'm driving home from the movie, and I say to Lindsay, I was like, so I think that probably one of these guys was crying in the movie theater when they saw this movie. And the reason why I think that is because I didn't think it would be Bruce. I thought it would be Adam this time. Because this has almost like a nerdy Field of Dreams quality to it, where it's about fathers and sons and blah, blah, blah. And there were a few people crying in the movie theater when I was watching it today. Did either one of you tear up watching this?
I don't think I did, man. I really don't. I really had a lot of positive vibes, a lot of positive energy. I didn't get real sentimental about it. If I were going to cry, it would have been when they were torturing poor baby Groot.
I cried twice in this movie. Once from laughter, once from the feels, man. And you can't get any better than that, dude. When you're laughing so hard you're crying, and then when a movie can touch you to where you're crying there as well, knock it out of the park, man.
I figured it would be you.
I'm a sentimental guy. I know it.
Yeah, I know that you cry a lot in movies, and I'm not saying that as like ha ha.
No,
I just know that you do.
But for me, when it's told from the perspective of the father, it's more likely to make me cry, and that's why Logan had the old waterworks going for me when I saw that, and it impacted me so strongly.
Right. I will tell you that I have not. I was not born with human emotions like you. That's why my nickname was Robot for so many years, is because people were like, you act the exact same if the sky is falling or if it's the greatest day of your life. You're always the same.
Strangely, I always put the emphasis on the Johnson part.
Yes, you do. You know, that is becoming more and more frequent with you lately, Leslie.
You know what they say? If you repeat the lie long enough, it'll become true.
Slammed you for it yet? Because I will if it keeps up. Just so you know.
What's it they say about print the legend?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
All right. So we got to get down to it. For those of you that are new to the show, we don't have star ratings on here. We don't have letters or thumbs or none of that jazz. We've got our own stupid.
Adam.
What?
It's the most popular segment on the show.
I'm sorry. We got off on a tangent.
I was waiting to see how far he would go. I knew, Sean. I knew, but I was waiting.
The show's going on a long time.
If there's ever a movie that has begged for this segment, it is this movie.
I thought it was I'm sorry. I thought it was self-explanatory to everyone. So in that case.
Yes, that's what it is.
Well, shut up. Just, will you please give me this one?
Well, unlike you, Adam, we actually do homework before we do these podcasts.
Hey, listen.
So, like, when it doesn't get recognized, and it stings a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
You hear this? I cut up all those pieces of paper to put into the hat for the Patreon trial. If that'll say commitment, God, I don't know what does. All right. So, scratch what I said previously and dig this. On this program, we do the unthinkable. We connect every superhero film because, believe you me, we found it out and it can happen. We had to figure out how this movie relates to our good friend, Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Is that what goes on in the show?
It is. Stallone is everywhere. This is the easiest Stallone connection ever. Stallone plays Stegard Ogord, leader of the Ravagers, and he's Sylvester Stallone. So there's your Stallone connection.
All right.
You know, when something like this happens, I'm not sure if I should be happy or concerned. Because, yes, I don't have to do the work I usually do on this hilarious comedy bit, but what about the ramifications? I mean, does an ironic black hole open up over this joke, sucking all of the irony out with it, leaving an irony void in our universe? Does this mean that we've taken this joke too far, that eventually this was destined to happen? Have we made God mad by continuing the same joke for 3 years? And what about Sylvester Stallone himself? The guy actually listened to this podcast and specifically this comedy bit, would he laugh? Would he get the joke? Would he understand the admiration I have for him? Or does that not come across each week? Because he's been working steady on a big name. He's a big name Hollywood actor since Rocky came out in 1976. You know who was a huge Hollywood star in 1976? Chris Christopherson. If you had Christopherson agree to be in your movie, that movie was getting made. Mm-hmm. Rocky was the highest grossing movie in 1976. The second highest grossing movie was a documentary called To Fly! ! And that's not something I came up with. It's literally the second highest grossing movie in 1976. That's how different the landscape of movies were back then. And Stallone's been through it all. The gritty, realistic movies of the 70s, the action movies of the 80s, the unfunny comedies of the 90s, the family-friendly movies of the 2000s, and now the superhero movies of the 2010s. He's still here. And here's the thing about Stallone in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He's a very welcome addition to a very, very good movie. Will we see him in the Ravagers again? I sure hope so, and I can't wait. Stallone, if you're listening, please make a sequel to Get Carter. And please stay away from Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. That was never funny. It wasn't funny. Now, Taserface and Wretch, let's review Guardians of the Galaxy and learn how to wink sarcastically.
Okay, so now I'm going to go into the bit that I should have left until later. We have our own patented Robin rating system here, kids. It's different, it's new, it's unique, and you can find it out on Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the page. And while you're there, throw us a like, man. We really appreciate that. Bruce, where does Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 fall on the H&P Robin rating system for you, sir?
You have a comic-accurate Finn. You have David Hasselhoff. You have the world's greatest turd jokes. You have Sly Stallone. You have Adam Warlock. You have Watchers. You have another appearance of Howard the Duck. You have a Gilmore Girls alum in a prominent role. I will be watching this movie over and over again. If I live long enough, I will see it 100 times. I have to give this a Dick Grayson.
Very good. Mr. Keenan.
It's a Dick Grayson. This is a movie. This is one of the two movies I was looking most forward to in 2017. It's the LeBron James of movies. It actually did more than I thought it would do, and it's a Dick Grayson all day. I love this movie.
Yep. All right, now to me. So honestly, when I left this movie, I was high on Dick Grayson. I really was. Everything was there, and then
But then you remembered you were a contrarian.
Hold on. I got you, baby bird. We're on a roller coaster. So I did. So I was like, oh, man, this was fantastic. Then, a couple hours later, it was like, it was all right. It was good. Maybe not as wild as I wanted it to be. But the more I thought about it, within 24 hours, I was just like, you know what? It stuck with me. It bore it into my cold, cold heart. And it just showed me, again, James Gunn trims every little bit of fat out of this thing. Every single thing leads to another, and it is exactly what it's supposed to be. Like I said, for a movie that can make me cry from laughter and from feelings, that's a big thing. I enjoyed every single bit of this thing. The new songs, bringing us a whole new awesome mixed soundtrack. Ooh, and giving him a Zune at the end. Oh my gosh.
So good.
Let me tell you.
So good.
As someone who owned a Zune, that means a lot to me. I did. I owned
up to 300 songs.
It was so good. 300 songs. Look at his face was amazing. But it was so good. And but this is Dick Grayson all the way, man. So James Gunn, you are 2 for 2 on this program with Guardians movies as getting perfect scores. So congratulations to you, sir. A feat no one else has done. That's right. No one else has done that. 3 years. So good on you, my friend. So that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. We really, really appreciate that. Quick reminder here, Gorgon Campy, shoot us that email, buddy, and you'll pick that Patreon selection there for us. Please pick something that doesn't suck or sucks so bad that it's fun. So, either way. But if you'd like to get in on some of this Patreon action, patreon.com/HMP, there are still chances to win, so go ahead and do that. Even if you donate at the $1 level, you get in on that. That's what's cool about it. Next week, we got something else, something new, something exciting. There is a new documentary coming out. It's going to be debuting on Hulu. It's called Batman and Bill. It is it's a movie. It's a documentary about I'll say, tumultuous relationship Bill Finger had with the Batman character.
I'll get to pull out my favorite soapbox of all time because my Bill Finger soapbox is one that I can never stand on enough.
Yeah, so if back in the day you remember Bob Kane, he was always the one credited, but Bob Kane may not have had as much to do with Batman as we all think, and this documentary is going to shed a little bit of light on that subject. And again, that's going to be on Hulu, so check that out. Join us next week when we talk about that. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet this week, sir?
Well, I got a big announcement for this big show here. I just wanted to let everybody know that Chubby Wizard, Wrath of the Manticore, the ebook and the paperback are now available on Amazon. Ooh. Audiobook hopefully coming very soon. Audible, boy, do they love to mess with my timing. But the audiobook should be coming very soon. In movie terms, I would say that Dragon in the Needles was my personal passion project that I gave a limited release during Oscar season. And Chubby Wizard, Wrath of the Manticore is my crazy summer blockbuster packed full of action, humor, and fun. No serious themes are being pushed, just good fun similar to a nice drunken Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Search Chubby Wizard on Amazon and you'll find it, along with some weird stuff. Apparently there are multiple books by multiple authors about men who turn into bears and get it on with big beautiful women that come up when you search Chubby Wizard. I did not write any of those, though they have way more reviews than mine does. Maybe I should switch genres. But anyway, I also have an author page on Amazon. It's just amazon.com/authors/Bruce Leslie. So I am now a contemporary with Geoffrey Chaucer because he also has one of those author pages. And you can always go to chubbywizard.com for all the deets, as the young kids say.
And by the way, if you guys aren't on Patreon, you missed out on the first half of the show that like the before show and after show that only Patreon people $5 and up end up getting. We went through the H&P book that Bruce is going to write. Let me tell you something. You're missing out if you don't get that. So, Sean, what do you got?
You can find me on Twitter at Hero Movie Sean, and I've got some projects coming up that I can't talk about.
Good. Keep them quiet. We don't want to hear about
it. Love those NDAs.
You got it. That is it, everybody. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Join us back here next week for Batman and Bill. For Bruce, Leslie, Sean Keenan, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.